Well, hello and welcome back to Raising World Changers. And this week we're talking about the topic, how to empower your child rather than overpower them. So within this topic, we're learning that when we empower our children with life skills, that they become self-directed. We give them the skills that they need for life in the way that we interact with them on a day-to-day basis, in the everyday situations that we find ourselves as parents continually. So we've talked about how to deal with when they say no in a way that empowers them and doesn't take away their no, which is a basic human boundary. We've also talked about conflict resolution or sibling rivalry. Whenever you have a conflict, how to teach and train your children that conflict is normal, a normal part of life, and how to resolve it on their own. And I shared with you how my experience of learning to do that with preschoolers and how amazingly well it goes. So a lot of times the kingdom of God is, I've heard it called an upside-down kingdom. The things that we think won't work or will work the opposite. So it's like, we give or we sow to reap. When you want to get something, you give first. So in the kingdom of God, giving comes before receiving. You love your enemies. You do good to those who despitefully use you. And you'd think that would make things worse, but it doesn't. So it's the same with raising kids. A lot of the things that we naturally tend to do are the opposite of what our children really need. So when it comes to problem solving, your child's gonna encounter problems all through his life. I mean, life is a series of problems we have to solve, right? And so it starts when they're really little, like 2 years old, and they're building a block tower, and the tower falls down, and to them that's a big problem. It's like they didn't expect that. So it's interrupted their day, and now they have this problem to solve. And then it goes on through their developmental stages all the way into adulthood. But even as teenagers, they're going to encounter problems with their friends. Problems working out things at school, handling the demands of life and learning that things don't always go smoothly. And in the interim, they're going to learn that, when they forget their lunch, that's a problem. They're going to have to figure out a solution. And it may not always be you. So that's the one thing we want to guard against in problem solving. And this is the disempowering way, or the overpowering way that parents often deal with problems in their child's life, is they come in, they swoop in, and they think they're saving the day, but they're actually teaching and training their children, enabling them to be dependent rather than independent. So remember, we talked about how our kids want the same thing we want. They want to be independent. They want to be self-directed. Well, that's what we want too as parents, right? We don't want to raise kids that grow up to be dependent and aimless and indecisive and unable to handle conflict and problems, and just, basically, fully dependent on someone else all the time. But if you think about it, however you deal with them when they're children, that's how they're going to deal with life as they go on through life. So start when they're little. It's so much easier. They're completely receptive. They believe everything we tell them when they're little. And they can't separate fact from fiction. So definitely want to be very straightforward and factual with your kids. Take the emotion out of it. What's the problem? Your child's upset. One of the things we resist as parents is allowing our children to be upset, or even letting them be upset. Being upset is not a bad thing. We'll talk about that more in another series on heart-to-heart parenting. But that tendency we have, like I said, it's backwards in the kingdom of God. The destructive way, or the knowledge way, says, "Oh, you're feeling bad, don't feel that way." And we teach them to ignore their feelings, to suppress their feelings. But the tree of life way says, "Oh, you're upset, it's okay, we'll find a solution, we'll work through this together." So when your child has a problem, the first thing you want to do is help them identify the problem. And sometimes it might be obvious. But in this series on life skills, I think that some of you guys are going to learn some things that you never learned as a child. And this is going to help you, not just in dealing with your children, in your own life, and in your marriage. Because life skills are life skills, and the same principles, the same skills apply all through life. So when you're dealing with your child, identify the problem. Instead of getting upset that you forgot something that you were supposed to do, you just pick up and you go on. That's life, right? That's something I had to learn as an adult, that if things didn't go perfectly, I would get upset. It's just like, it's life. You just pick up and go on, right? You do the best you can. And sometimes you forget things. And you know what? You apologize as necessary. You do what you need to do. But getting upset over problems doesn't help them, right? So you help your child identify the problem. Let's just use the 2-year-old. His block tower falls down and he starts crying. And rather than coming in and saying, "Oh, don't cry, I'll fix it," and being the rescuer, you just come in and you say, "Oh, I see your tower fell down," and that can be frustrating. And then you're going to help the child brainstorm solutions. So with a 2-year-old, obviously you're going to do the brainstorming. You say, "Oh, well, maybe if we make the base bigger, the tower will be more stable." So you're teaching him, just some basic things about life, right? And then, if the child's super upset, you can talk to him about, empathize. I know that's upsetting, but let's see what we can do to fix it. So you never want to ignore their feelings. Again, we're going to get into that later. But anyway, so then you just want to help brainstorm solutions and then choose a solution and go with that. And so, let's take an older child. He forgot to wash his uniform for his big soccer game tonight. And it's dirty in the laundry, covered with mud from the last game. And you have to leave the house in 10 minutes. And, there's no use in getting upset, like I said. But, let the child own his problems. If he stuffed it in his hamper and didn't bring it to the laundry room or whatever he was supposed to do, well, what do you want to do, honey? Do you want to wear it dirty? Do you want to rinse it out and wear it wet? I mean, you just brainstorm solutions with him and let him choose. But you have to let children also experience the consequences of their choices so that next time they'll remember. It's okay to help them, but don't take on their responsibilities. Homework's a good example. If a child doesn't finish their homework or doesn't allow enough time to do his homework, I never help my kids with their homework. To me that was between them and their teacher. So if they've forgotten their lunch or something like that, it's okay for a child to call their mom and say, "Hey, can you bring my lunch to school? I forgot it." But so many kids nowadays, I hear them demanding, "Mom, I need you to." Well, that's great. I need you not to forget your lunch. What are you going to do about it? I mean, it's not like forgetting your lunch is a bad thing. We all forget things from time to time. But how you respond to the problems is going to either, like I said, empower them to think about what's a solution. Maybe you're at work and you can't go get the lunch. Maybe they'll have to eat a peanut butter sandwich in the cafeteria. I know that most schools do that for kids who are lunchless. They'll give them a free peanut butter and jelly sandwich. There's nothing wrong with that. It's no big deal. Don't make it a big deal. It's like, "Oh, you forgot your lunch? I'm sorry, I've done that before too. I remember eating peanut butter sandwiches when I was little." So don't make it into something it's not. Coming down on your child like, "I can't believe you forgot your lunch." "Oh, you forgot it? Oops. Well, what are you going to do?" Maybe he has some money in his lunch account. Maybe he doesn't. But just brainstorming solutions. So these are just simple ways that we can help our children slowly take responsibility, or I should say gradually take responsibility for the problems that they encounter in life. Maybe a friend doesn't want to play with them, and that's upsetting. And, again, allow your child to be upset. So how do you deal with emotion? We're going to talk about that in another session, but, well, she doesn't want to play with you. You know, what else can you do? Do you want to play with somebody else? Do you want to play by yourself? Do you want to ask her if she can play with you tomorrow? Just learning to problem solve and make decisions based on, information and fact rather than emotion. So problems are just problems. Your child's not the problem. His memory's not the problem. And you are not the rescuer. You don't own his problems. Let him own his own problems. So I hope that's helpful for you today. Please leave your comments, questions, and anything else below that if you have situations that you're dealing with. Sometimes it's hard for me, a little challenging for me to think about the day-to-day problems that parents face because my children are grown. So that's why it's helpful to me if you leave comments. Give me some of your real life situations that you're dealing with, and we'll talk about it in the next video, or I'll answer you in the comment section, give you some feedback. But it will help me to be more in touch with what you deal with on a day-to-day basis if you leave your comments and questions. So really appreciate you joining me today. I hope it was helpful. Tomorrow we're going to talk about decision making. And this is huge. And actually years ago as an adult, I went before the Lord and I asked Him, will you please teach me to make decisions? I knew there must be a secret, something I was missing, because I was terrible at making decisions, and I would spend so much time trying to make the right decision, and it seemed like it would always backfire. Well, lo and behold, there is a simple key to how to make decisions, and it will help you, and it will help you teach and train your child on how to make good, solid, sound, God decisions in his life going forward. So thanks once again for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow for decision making. Take care.